People that have defended your home against intruders. What is your story? There was a guy hanging around my apartment complex for at least 5 hours claiming to have been waiting for someone. At night my husband went out to walk our dog and I was in the bathroom. He realized he didn't lock the door and remembered that guy. Turned back after only a minute and found the guy in the process of opening our door. My husband is 6'4" and my dog is a 65-pound bull terrier. My husband started yelling, but what I saw scared the shit out of him the most was my dog trying to take him down. Never saw that guy again. I've written about this before, but it may have been under a different username. September 1998. I'm a 22-year-old mom. At home on the computer in the front room, while my kid napped in the adjoining room. Front door swings open and a Hispanic guy, around 5 feet 6 inches, and 180 walks in. I wasn't initially alarmed as we had a Hispanic family move in a few doors up the street recently, and I figured he was in the wrong place. I tell him calmly he is looking for the other house. He gives no inclination of understanding. I more forcefully tell him and again nothing. At this point, I'm getting alarmed. I'm tiny, 5 feet 3 inches, 90 pounds at the time, and the room is a simple office, not a lot of weapons. The third time I yell for him to get out. My biggest fear is waking the kid who hasn't been sleeping long. For some reason I looked at the kid's closed door when I yelled, and the intruder followed my gaze. Then he took a step towards my kid's room. In that moment I knew I would die before I would let him through that door. A quick survey of my surroundings reminded me I had scissors in my pencil cup on the desk. I buried those scissors so far into his abdomen I cut my own hand on the handle. Then I jerked them towards me as hard as I could. Blood went everywhere. His eyes got huge, and then he ran back out the door. The police followed the blood trail for several blocks, but assume he was picked up when the trail stopped. They sent an officer to every hospital in the area, but he never went for treatment. I had to have HIV tests for 2 years after, since our blood mingled. No idea what happened to him, but he lost a lot of blood. To this day I lock my door, even if I'm just going to the car. My kid still rolls his eyes when I tell him I would hurt someone intending to do him harm. When I was 17 I had a black powder rifle. I actually still have it. I was cleaning it in the basement, put it together, and took it upstairs for storage. While I was upstairs I heard someone come in through the basement garage door. I thought it was my brother or mom coming home, but when I opened the door to the basement I saw some random old guy coming up the steps. Edit, old in the context of how he looked to me at the age of 17. In hindsight he was probably in his mid to late 40s early 50s. I asked him what he wanted, and he asked if I was home alone. I grabbed my rifle, empty, and pointed it at him, telling him he needs to leave the way he came in. When he got back to the bottom of the stairs he unlocked the door he came in through. It didn't register with me until later that he had locked the door behind him when he entered the house. 4 years ago, I got in an argument at a party that escalated into a minor fight. The other guy was an old friend who had recently moved back to town after living elsewhere for a decade. After the scuffle, we made up, hung out for another hour or so, and I walked him most of the way to his house. Mine was only 3 blocks away from his. Woke up in a dead panic a couple hours later to the sound of glass breaking. Someone was battering my garage door trying to get through and not being quiet about it. I called 911, explained my situation, and posted up next to my living room door with a baseball bat. I left the phone on the ground still on the line with emergency. The intruder made it through the last door and I attacked with the bat. Connected about 5 or 6 solid hits to the head and 1 to the ribs before the intruder collapsed. Turned on the light and I recognized this person. It's the wife of the guy I fought with the evening before. She had a weapon on her too. Police came, ambulance took her away, and everyone left after a few hours. It was awful. She admitted to trying to attack me in my sleep to the police. I declined to press charges after speaking with her husband, so long as she got adequate psychological help. She spent 2 months in ICU, but ultimately pulled through. She's been nothing but a nightmare to everyone I know since then. This my mother's little story of our drug addicted neighbor, so not me. My mother heard someone walking about upstairs and immediately she takes me and my brother out and puts us in the car. I was like 3 if that. Then she goes back in upstairs and finds the neighbor filling her pockets and generally browsing through her stuff like you would do at a mall. My mother then beats the shit out of her so badly that the junkie went to the police herself out of fear. No damage, no broken windows or doors and nothing taken obviously. Just a lesson learned. Don't break into the home of an angry mother. I was 16. Parents were away that weekend, so I was home alone. Guy charged in through the screen door from our deck when I was laying on the couch watching TV. He just rushed straight at me. I leaped off the couch and just did the first thing that came to mind. Full force headbutt. Shattered his nose and felt like I got a few more bones in there as well. He fell on his ass onto the floor. I did the same. Headbutts hurt. My dog, being the absolute unit he was, 105-pound golden, came hurtling into the living room and shoulder checked the dude into the glass of the TV cabinet / entertainment center thing. Didn't even bother biting, just ran into the guy. Dude struggles up and sprints back out. Called the cops. Never found out who he was or what his plan was. I was 14 and home alone. We were living in a crappy part of nowhere in Knoxville, Tennessee at the time. Someone drove up and knocked on our sliding glass door. I was nervous, but I stayed silent. Then they tried to force the door open, but it was held shut with a pole, so they gave up and drove away. I figured that was the end of it. Shortly thereafter, they came back. I heard the sound of someone pressing against the exterior wall. It was them cutting the phone lines to our security system and the alarm speaker. By then I was on the phone with 911 informing them what was happening. Heavy thudding started to come from the front door as someone bashed it in, breaking the deadbolt. I was terrified and pleaded with 911 to please get someone out here right away. Whoever it was must have heard me talking on the phone, because they immediately left, although the front door was broken and wide open. It took the cops another 20 minutes to arrive. The person who broke in the door must have cut himself doing it, because our porch had droplets of blood on it. My dad screamed at me for not getting a license plate number while I cried. The people who broke in were never caught, and I've never felt safe anywhere since. I had nightmares for a long time. When I was about 16 or so, my dad, brother and I were on the way home from church and saw that a truck we didn't recognize was parked in front of our house. We had a long driveway, so by the time we pulled up and parked, my dad had told my brother and I to stay in the car as he figured out what whoever it was wanted. When we got close enough, we noticed that the guy, a big dude in his 40s, easily 6 feet 6 inches with a giant beer belly, was hunched over by the front door. My dad is a teacher in a tiny town, so it wasn't a surprise that he recognized the guy. He called out, "Judd, is that you?" Judd turned, didn't acknowledge my dad at all, and hustled back to the passenger side of the mysterious truck, grasping his 10-gallon hat to his head the whole time. He threw himself in head first and, his legs still dangling out the passenger door, yelled for the driver to go. They peeled out and we were left staring after them, wildly confused. We noticed later that he'd been trying to unlock the door with a screwdriver, but only succeeded in scraping up the door frame before we caught him. The best part? The door was unlocked the entire time. I was 12 years old hanging out with my dad watching a movie at around 1 AM. All of a sudden there is pounding on the door. My dad gets up and twists the knob. As soon as he does, the door flies open and a mountain of a man throws the door open. My dad is pretty big himself, but gets knocked to the floor, but happens to grab the guy's shirt on the way down. They start wrestling and fist fighting in the entrance of our doorway. Him standing at the top of the steps looking down and watching all of this in slow motion. My dad starts screaming to get his shotgun out of his closet. I run upstairs, grab the shotgun, run back to the top of the steps and pump around into the chamber. Immediately after hearing the sound, the guy tries to run away, but my dad holds him down on the ground. At this time my neighbors had heard the yelling and scuffle and ran over. They call the police while my dad is holding this guy against the ground and me, a 12-year-old kid, aiming a shotgun at the back of this dude's head. The police end up coming with their guns drawn and I put the shotgun on the sidewalk. The guy ends up getting arrested and supposedly had just gotten out of jail for a strong-arm robbery and battery. I can't even imagine what would have happened if I had been alone, considering my dad has worked third shift my entire life, but it just happened on one of his nights off. My dad was literally a superhero to me after that day. My dad did when I was a kid. We lived in the hood and the upstairs in our house was 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. Me and both my siblings were in our bedroom and my parents were in theirs. The alarm started going off and my dad instantly scooped all of us into his room and pushed his massive bed in front of the door. We had a bunch of guns too, but my dad said it just wasn't worth killing them over the minor valuables we had downstairs. They stole a box TV, a microwave, a video camera, and a few stupid minor things. It was maybe like $300 worth of stuff at the time, and my dad said he wasn't going to shoot them unless they threatened our lives, and they didn't even come upstairs.